everyone, we are back and we are here with a review of Live Alive. This is a remake of a Super Nintendo RPG that came out back in 1994 in Japan. Now, the interesting thing though with that is it only released in Japan, it never released anywhere else worldwide. The only way you could play it though, at the time, before this remake that came out, was a fan translation that was made available, but last year, this game got a release as a remake for the Nintendo Switch, and remained a Switch exclusive. However, just recently, this game came out for the PlayStation 4 and 5 and PC. And the simplest way I'll put it is this: if you haven't played this game, and if you like RPGs, or even if you're not big into RPGs, this is probably one of the best games I've played in my entire lifetime. I would say everything about it I thought was just class. The story, its unique structure of its narrative, its remake in terms of presentation, in terms of the pixel art, in terms of the art, because it's using the same HD2D engine, or Unreal Engine, but HD2D style that you saw in Octopath Traveler, and in Triangle Strategy, along with the excellent music. And it's very simple, but I found very in-depth gameplay. This game was just, it hit all the right notes for me, I found, when playing it. It's not perfect, nothing ever is. Like, this is the same thing I even said with Ys 8, but for me, Live Alive ranks up there with that game as, for me, being a unique classic that I'm just upset that I didn't get to experience until recently. I wish I could have played it back in the day, but I guess it's better late than never, right? But what exactly makes this special? Like I said, the one thing is its structure. It's based in 7 chapters, at least when you start, so you have these 7 separate stories that you play, each with their own unique setting and their unique presentations, like in terms of the visual style, in terms of like how things look, and also its music as well. And once you play through all 7 stories, you will unlock an 8th story, and then after that you unlock the final story, which ties everything together. And as I said, each story is pretty unique, whether it be finding a disciple to carry on one's legacy, defend a town from a threat, protecting someone. I don't want to say too much more because I don't want to really spoil a lot of it, but the thing with this is I like how everything just kind of separates it into its own thing, but then it can somehow group everything in together for this final act, which was actually really fun. Now, the thing that makes these interesting also, like besides the story itself and the setting, is that the gameplay structure is still the same, but the way they play is a little bit different. Not everything is the same. You'll have one that's kind of like a versus fighting game. You'll have another one that feels like a party RPG. Like, you have a party and you just go out as you would like if you were playing any other RPG. You have another one that's very focused on its story, with little to no combat in it as well. I did find each thing unique and fun, and they don't all overstay their welcome. Some are a little bit weird in length. Some can be as short as, say, like 40 minutes, for instance, but some can go as long as up to, say, 3 hours, as an example, depending on what you do. But the thing is, I never got bored with any of them, and they always kept me intrigued with what was going to happen next. But the thing that does connect them, at least overall, is the gameplay structure of how it plays. It is grid-based. It is a grid-based RPG where you move your characters along the grid and you use your attacks, and your attacks affect certain areas, so they have like a radius and stuff. Some can affect only to a specific square, but only in specific ways, or they could be around you as well. The combat in this game I thought was actually, when I first saw it, I thought it was like a little too simple. And it's just, there's got to be more to it than that. And thankfully, there is when it comes to that stuff, because like I said, each attack you have it's a different type of, it can be a different type of attack. It could be, say, wind, it could be water, it could be like a slash, it could be a stab, it could be punching, it could be kicking, but they all have their own specific radiuses and their own areas of effect, and some can even cause status effects as well. So what you try to do is, when you're in the combat, is, okay, which move works best, what can take out what, and like what is beneficial, what could be vulnerable, what should I avoid using, and can I stack this stuff as well. So the combat has depth, and I thought it was a unique structure in terms of how it played. I thought it was actually kind of fun. It kept me on my toes for the most part, but the one thing with the combat is you kind of get into a rhythm with it, but it's also, if you find the one attack that works, you're pretty much just going to stick with that for that combat encounter. I know there was an instance during a boss where I just kept using the same move over and over and over and over again until like the last hit, where it finally did something different. So, like, the combat's fun, it does stand out, it is unique, but it does have some of its flaws. It's not perfect, but then again, it was fun throughout the entire process. And how leveling actually works in this game is, when you level up, your stats increase, and you'll also get new moves. You'll get a new move with it. It stops at a certain point, so you'll max out a character's abilities, but then after that, you're just basically leveling up their stats, making them more powerful. But it's not just with leveling, you're also getting gear as well, so you can change like their weapon or even like their armor, and then you also have attachments or like little accessories that you can put on your characters as well that can affect parameters. So if you don't feel like fine-tuning, at least with the armor and stuff, there is just a button to optimize for your character, which streamlines things and makes things actually a little bit easier when it comes to that stuff, if you're not really focused on trying to min-max or like be very specific. You can do some of that min-maxing when it comes to using your accessories, and you can get multiples of them. You can even stack multiples of said accessory, if you have it, on a character as well. So I thought that was actually kind of neat. In terms of like other gameplay, it's basically you do a bunch of wandering around. The one improvement or addition, quality of life thing that they've added from the Super Nintendo version is a little radar, or just like a little radar of sorts in the corner, so you can actually see, okay, you got to go in this general direction of where your objective is. It doesn't show you the map completely on there. It will just give you it's over here, go look that way, move that way, something like that. The radar's handy, but if you want to shut that off, there is an option for that. Same thing if you want to shut off tutorials and any like little display hints as well. So if you want to make it just like you're playing an old school RPG, you can do that. It does follow those old school fundamentals, I find, with it. If you played any Super Nintendo RPG back then, or anything from, say, the 16-bit era, you're going to feel kind of right at home here when it comes to this. But if you're experiencing this for the first time, or you've never played anything from the past and you're more used to modern RPGs, there will be a little bit of an adjustment period, but I don't think it's anything too drastic. And also, when it comes to that, the game doesn't feel overly punishing. When you get into combat, and you're at full stats and everything, but when you finish combat, your character's health just completely restores back to 100%. So, like I said, when it comes to using the moves and stuff, going back to that, it does encourage experimentation with movesets, and you're not really punished that much. There was maybe a handful, like maybe less than 5 instances I found when playing where I thought it was a little bit of a struggle. but some of it was mostly just due to poor decision making when it comes to some of those combat encounters, but that's neither here nor there. The game isn't overly difficult, and the game also is fun to grind. Like, I did do some grinding just for levels, like in the last half of the game, which I thought, was handy and definitely came into play. Because I'm not going to spoil too much because I don't want to spoil like a lot of the game, but the one thing I will say, when it comes to like, say, the last half or maybe last third of it, things change and it kind of throws back, like I said, to your old school kind of style of that era of games, where when you're playing in the other chapters, you're seeing kind of different things and stuff, but it kind of falls back on its laurel. It falls back to its laurels a bit. It did seem a little bit odd, but like I said, it wasn't anything off-putting or breaks the game or the experience. Though I will say, when it comes to the story, like I said, I'm not going to spoil too much of it, but I did appreciate its story and how it managed to tie almost everything together in that final act. Though I will say there are some points where, you can make some decisions. A lot of it doesn't matter that much with it, with the exception of maybe one or two sections where, depending on what you do, will determine some fates. Will determine a fate that will give you that character for the end. So try and be aware of your decisions. But if you're not happy with some of your choice with that, one thing the game allows you to do is when you complete one said story, you can go back and replay that story as well. So, as I said, it does encourage experimentation, and I did appreciate that. That's something I did actually try. So, just to see what the differences are. Especially when it comes to that end section, depending on the characters you pick for it. But overall, like, I would say I did like the length of it too. It didn't feel overly long, but it didn't feel overly short. I think in total, with grinding for levels and just exploring around, the game took me over about 22 hours to finish. Now, that's obviously not finding everything. I'm pretty sure I missed some stuff though, but I want to go back and try and find some of that. But I feel like it's of good length, and if you don't have a lot of time, even the short lengths of the other stories are good enough for their own little experiences. So you can pace yourself to play these as you want. But yeah, I enjoyed those. Those were great. But the other thing that stood out with this remake is obviously its presentation. The game uses the HD 2D style, as I said, something similar you saw in Octopath Traveler and even Project Triangle Strategy. I keep wanting to say Project Triangle Strategy because that's what I still think of it as. But yeah, it has that same look, it has that same style. I think it looks great. The pixel art is good, the effects are well done, environments are well designed, and each story, as I said, has its own kind of unique setting when it comes to that stuff. And I feel like it's represented well. If you're wondering what are the differences though between, say, the Switch release and these new versions on PlayStation and PC, the only things that really stood out were, I think, increased resolution that you're getting on these new systems. So the game renders at a higher resolution. Loading does feel a tidbit faster, I find, compared to the Switch, but the other thing that really stands out also is the frame rate. I mean, the Switch version runs at 30 frames per second, and it manages to hold it relatively well. It does drop when there are a lot of effects on the screen, whereas when I was playing it on PlayStation 5, that's the version I have here for this review and all the footage you've been seeing. The PlayStation 5 version ran at 60, and I don't think it faltered at all with it. Maybe it did in a little bit when it came to a lot of effects on the screen, but it didn't falter that much. And in terms of differences you would get on PC, in terms of options, there honestly isn't that much, but you can play the game at higher resolutions. You can also unlock the frame rate, so if you want to run unlimited frame rate, you can totally do that. And a VSync option. So in terms of like messing around with options on PC, there isn't that much, and the game doesn't seem that demanding on hardware, so you should be fine with your experience with it on PC, at least from a technical side. And again, like I said, when I'm playing it on the PlayStation 5, I didn't have any issues, no crashing or hang-ups of that nature. The game was just smooth throughout. So kudos to that. The one thing that did really stand out with me was the music and the sound in this game. I thought every era has its own kind of unique tone with it and its music, and it feels very appropriate. Whether you be visiting, like I said, Japan, or even Imperial China, or even the Wild West, everything sounds appropriate. And the combat themes are also some of the best I've heard with it, with probably, I'd say China being the one that kind of stands out the most for me when it comes to that. But nothing compares to the boss music. I think that song alone is one of the greatest things I've ever heard. It feels very appropriate, it gets you hyped up. It just sounds phenomenal, and they use that track to bookend the story, to bookend each story. But you can still use it, you still hear it when you find optional boss battles, though. So I did think that that'd come in handy, and then the music that they use for the end of the game is just really good, especially how they tie all of the eras in together. I can say this is up there with Ys 8 as one of my favorite soundtracks, I think, in any video game. One personal thing I would have liked to see with the music is, I think if they added the ability to use the Super Nintendo soundtrack for this game, that would have been a nice touch. If you didn't want to use the new music, you could use the old music instead. I feel like that could have been a nice touch, but again, that's neither here nor there for that. But that's in hindsight. If there was to be another remake project like this in the future, maybe that's something to consider. But overall, this game was just truly something special. Whenever I wasn't playing it, I wanted to go back and play it. And whenever I finished one of the stories, I immediately wanted to go to the next story. I wanted to see what happens next. I wanted to see how these characters' experiences unfold, and then how it all kind of ties together. The combat was fun, even though it seems shallow at first, but then again, you have that layers with it. It is a little bit easy, but it's not overly difficult. Everything about this, the story, like I said, those stories, that music, this was just something unique. Something I haven't really experienced that much, and I feel like this is something that's going to stick with me for a long time to come. I rank this game up there as one of my favorite games of all time, and I feel like this is something I could just replay easily, like Resident Evil 2, or even Ys 8, Lacrimosa of Dana, or even Max Payne. For me, yeah, this game is just that great. If you have never played an RPG before, and this would be your first one, I feel like this would be a great RPG to start with. And even if you're a fan of the older styles, like the older style from like that era, this game pays respect to that, and it feels unique. It did feel unique back then, and it still feels unique today. And it's for me a classic. It is, as I said, a unique classic. Play this game. I know you'll have fun with it. If you are curious with it, at least try the demo. Try the demo. It is available, and your progress will carry over into the full game. But, as I said, this game is a unique classic. It is one of my favorite experiences I've had. Play it. I think you will enjoy it, and I don't think you'll be disappointed with it. With that said, I have to give a big shout out and thank you to Square Enix for providing me a copy of this for the PlayStation 5 to review and to share with all of you. I thank you for taking a chance on me and doing this. Thank you all, though, for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Your support and everything means a lot. Have you played Live Alive? Have you played this remake? Or have you played the original? If you have, please tell me what you think about it. Leave your feedback in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video. Also subscribe to the channel. Your support, as I said, means a lot, and it lets me continue to do what I do, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. But thank you again for everything. Until next time, stay safe, and I will see you in the next one.